Hey, welcome back, everybody. Great to see you on this Saturday. And we've got a big time winter storm beginning across portions of the country, which is going to drop more than a foot of snow and big time ice through a big section from the mid-Atlantic through the Ohio Valley and into the Central Plains between now and Monday. And that could be followed up by the chance for a big winter storm in the south by next weekend and even a little bit before that. So we've got a lot to talk about in today's video. And with that said, if you're new to the channel and you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do so and hit that bell for the latest notifications. That'll make sure you're up to date and you're notified when I have the latest model guidance and a breakdown of that guidance to help you prepare for whatever is ahead. Also, go ahead and like the video if you enjoy it and comment. Let me know where you're watching from as that definitely helps me kind of gear these videos to the right areas. All right, folks, with that said, let's go ahead and dive into things and start talking weather. Now, showing you the lower 48 currently on satellite loop, relatively, kind of the calm before the storm, if you will. Now, we have two big pieces of energy that are going to be very important for kind of what happens. We've got this big spin up over Canada currently, and then we have just kind of this mess that you're seeing out west. This is our actual storm system that's going to dive south and eventually cross through the Ohio Valley. This piece up here into Canada, though, that's what's going to kind of compress it a little bit and help us figure out where our rain-snow line, or I guess really our snow-ice line and our snow-nothing line is through portions of the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. So definitely important players on the field here, and we're going to use those to help us in today's forecast. Now, as for current conditions out there, things, like I said, relatively quiet. We have a little bit of northwest flow snow, some lake effect up here into the east from New York State down into Pennsylvania. And back into West Virginia, Michigan also getting in on some of that snow currently on this Saturday. But back out towards the Central Plains, you can see what is the beginning of our storm. Same story in the Rockies. We've got that blue snow beginning to fall from Montana, back into South Dakota, Nebraska, even Iowa and Missouri. And then kind of the real center of what is going to become our storm still back into Utah this morning. But by the time we get to overnight tonight and into the morning of tomorrow, this will be back over the panhandle of Oklahoma and Texas and begin to work across the country. So it is beginning, folks. It feels like we've been talking about this storm forever, but today is really the start of it, and it's going to definitely be interesting to see how it plays out and how some of those forecasts verify or don't verify. And now, as for watches, warnings, and advisories, we've got plenty of them out there. The map is covered with winter storm warnings in pink. Those stretch all the way from central Kansas into Kansas City, through Jefferson City in Missouri, through St. Louis, Louisville, Cincinnati, and likely being extended into the mid-Atlantic today, where we currently have winter storm watches here in the blue from Philadelphia down through DC, Richmond, Baltimore, and just about the entire state of West Virginia, although some of us already in winter storm warnings due to ongoing northwest flow snow that is kind of causing problems. We've even got winter weather advisories all the way down into northern Tennessee and the triad of North Carolina for some potential icing that this storm may bring. And that will be another concern. And speaking of ice, these little pink boxes, or I guess purple boxes rather, not pink, that you see in southern Illinois, Indiana, portions of Kentucky, and southern Missouri, these are ice storm warnings where we're going to get more than half an inch, upwards close to an inch of ice, which is going to be more than enough to cause power problems, basically impossible travel, and all sorts of issues in that area. So the map it's really covered today, and it's going to be kind of a theme, I think, through the next week or two as another storm is looking more and more likely by this time next week once again. All right, so let's go ahead and break down the meteorology behind the storm really quick with Meteorology in Minutes, and then we'll just get down to it region by region, break it all down for you, give you the forecast, and then we will move on to next week's potential storm to end out the video. So this is the setup. This is what I showed you already, the two pieces of energy, one big spin over northern Canada. That's producing pretty cold conditions into the east and will help kind of funnel in some cooler air down into the northeast and even portions of the northern mid-Atlantic. And that's really going to enhance this storm system from just a rain event to a big-time winter weather event. Now, our main piece of energy back out west, that's what's going to produce the actual center of low pressure at the surface. And here's how it's going to do it. It's going to continue to cross the Rockies today. And like I said, by the time we get to this evening, overnight tonight, the center of this trough will begin to get right around the foothills of the Rockies. And this is when our Colorado low will form. It's a very common area of low pressure that forms in the United States due to general storm paths that kind of go through here. Also, you have an area of baroclinic instability, and basically what that is just the cold air of the Rocky Mountains and the warmer, humid air of the plains that we often get that kind of interact and help to form low pressure when you get some sort of lift above it. And that's exactly what's going to happen overnight tonight. That will strengthen the center of low pressure at the surface, and it'll be right over the Texas and Oklahoma panhandle, and then cross eastward throughout the storm as it is being supported in the upper levels by this trough. And will continue to do so. Now, this is tomorrow afternoon, and folks, this is a feisty upper level trough. You see all of this, or you see kind of how this becomes a circle in here, and then on this side it becomes just back to a trough. This is going to produce tremendous amounts of lift in the atmosphere, which is very likely to lead to big time precipitation totals, whether that's ice, snow, rain, depending on where you're at. This is going to produce a lot of whatever is falling from the sky. And that's why some folks could see more than a foot of snow and more than half an inch of ice through Missouri and Kansas. And it'll be no walk in the park east of there either, as this works through the Ohio Valley, still maintaining big upper level support for a lot of precipitation overnight Sunday into Monday. And then eventually, once we get into here, the storm gets into the mid-Atlantic by Monday and Monday evening. And this is when the forecast becomes tricky for New York City, back down towards Philadelphia. We've got this upper level piece of energy that I told you about. And what's happening here is the wind is rotating around it like this. And while that's happening around our actual storm system, the wind is rotating this way. So what's happening is they're running into each other, and this is creating an area of convergence aloft. So instead of lift, you get sinking motion, and that kind of prevents the winter weather and all from even forming. In fact, nothing falls from the sky. So where that happens will be very important as well. That could rob places like New York City, northern New Jersey, and northern Pennsylvania from higher end precipitation amounts. And we'll definitely have to watch that with this storm system before it clears on out of here by Tuesday afternoon. And then the next piece of energy gets going on the table here. Now, I did briefly want to show you this. This is day 1 through 3, overall winter storm impacts. And we're going to see plenty of areas that are in the red here, meaning major, even some sprinkles of purple, which is extreme impacts from this winter storm. Whether that be from snow or ice, you're going to see it from Kansas all the way into the mid-Atlantic, into the Delmarva. So a big swath here with this storm, plenty of problems on the way. And I just thought that this map would kind of help illustrate how big of a deal this one is going to be. Definitely, I would say, arguably the biggest winter storm this season. So far, at least, from a, population perspective. We've had some big storms in the interior Northeast, but this is going to really stretch through a big geographical area. And it's the first one to do so, I would say, so far this winter. All right, let's go ahead and talk about it now for you. This is our latest NAM model, straight hot off the press this morning, and I'll give you the latest information on it. This is this morning, the model already projecting a little bit of light frozen precipitation beginning. A lot of this probably not quite reaching the ground yet, but as we get into this afternoon, I do expect more precipitation to begin to unfold, and it's especially this evening that things really crank up. Here's that low pressure beginning. We've got light to moderate snow through much of Nebraska, southern Iowa, northern Missouri, and then back into much of Kansas as well by your overnight tonight and into the early morning hours of Sunday. Now we get later on into the day Sunday, and this is when things really go downhill. You'll notice this kind of higher end level of snowfall rates back into Kansas. We've got ice ongoing. Kansas City, tough forecast. We've been talking about it. It could be ice. It could be snow. It could be kind of a mix of both. It's also a very real possibility with this storm system. South of the city, though, going to be an ice storm. North of the city, going to be a full-blown winter storm. And I'll tell you, some folks back here into kind of central Kansas have definitely uptrended on their snowfall totals with this big kind of deformation band on the backside here, potentially producing big-time snow. And I think a lot of folks, you'll see here, this is Sunday afternoon through much of Missouri. We've got rain in the southern extreme southern half of the state. We've got ice in the central part of the state, including St. Louis, and then we've got snow in the northern half of the state. So it's going to be a state divided for sure. But as we go through the backside of the storm, I think just about everyone gets in on some of this nice snow by late Sunday afternoon to end out the storm. And that will begin to accumulate on whatever ice you had beforehand, or if you had all snow, or if you even had rain. Into some of the extreme southern parts of the state down here near the Arkansas line. Could even pick up on some flurries at least, or some light snow showers to end things out on your Sunday night and into Monday morning. And then Monday afternoon out here looks a lot nicer, and you should be able to kind of shovel out of whatever problems you had, but it will be cold, so don't expect anything to melt on Monday. All right, same model. Let's take a look at the Ohio Valley now, and another area that's going to see big impacts. So we'll kind of discuss St. Louis eastbound on this map. This is tomorrow morning. This is when the bulk of the storm begins. We've got an all-out ice storm in St. Louis. And I'll tell you, I know you're probably getting a lot of forecasters telling you 5 to 7, 5 to 8 inches of snow in St. Louis. I really think this is going to be more of a 3 to 6 inch event through much of the city. I think ice is going to spoil kind of the forecast here for a lot of folks. And when I say 3 to 6 inches, it's not going to be 3 to 6 inches of nice fluffy snow. The kind of order of operations here, if you will, is it'll probably start as snow here, maybe even as early as late tonight, and then change over to the sleet throughout tomorrow morning and afternoon. And then as the storm pulls away, you'll get snow once again. So I think that's kind of going to be the order of operations for a lot of folks with this storm system, unless you're on the extreme northern side here. And I say extreme northern, but if you're kind of in central Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, this could be an all snow event. And that's where we could see more than a foot of snow out of this one. So we'll move it further ahead into time. Through Sunday afternoon, ice storm raging in southern Illinois, southern Indiana, right into the St. Louis area, Kentucky beginning to see those icy impacts. The purple is sleet, the pink is freezing rain, the blue is snow, I will add. I think Sunday afternoon we start as some nice snow in Cincinnati, could even start as snow in Louisville, but then quickly changing to ice in Louisville and Lexington, Kentucky, with, again, all-out ice storm unfolding there. We get through Sunday evening, that ice line tries to sneak up near Cincinnati. I think it'll be mostly snow there. I'm not quite as worried about ice there. Same story for Columbus, Indianapolis, Springfield. This seems like mostly a snow event to me, which is why you should get higher in totals. Also, big snow beginning in West Virginia by Sunday afternoon. But don't get too excited because that warm nose is working northward, and with it, it's going to begin to erode some of that snow. This is when Cincinnati, it could try to change to some sleet, or at least have a sleet-snow mix, definitely possible by the overnight of Sunday and into Monday. Another thing I want to add here is this. This is the evening of Sunday. In fact, let me back it up to Sunday afternoon one more time. You see this low pressure? And right down here, we're going to have a severe weather threat into portions of eastern Arkansas, southern Arkansas, northern Louisiana, and I would even say kind of western Mississippi during the afternoon and evening hours of Sunday. We're going to have an immense amount of wind shear out here, and just a little bit of instability in that warm sector could cause big problems. Another thing I want to kind of throw in here that may be a wrinkle in the forecast. You see how dry it is over Kentucky right here? This is Sunday afternoon. This could cut down on some of those ice totals. This is a bit of a dry slot. Or even less than that. It's more so that the models are projecting that our warm front is going to extend a little bit farther north, kind of like I said it probably would end up doing, and that's shifting all of the precipitation northward because this is getting driven off of that frontogenesis from the warm front. So if you're behind it, you're not really going to see much precipitation, I think, as this lifts north. It's wherever it stalls out, though, and that's when we will get the bigger bands of snow and bigger bands of sleet, because you'll be kind of under that lifting mechanism for a extended period of time here during the afternoon Sunday and during the overnight. Now, here's the good news for everyone that got ice or rain. The storm pulls away during the evening and overnight of Monday, and here comes that snow on the backside Monday afternoon. And this could pile up quickly to a quick 1 to 3 inches through Kentucky, southern Indiana, southern Illinois, and then even into West Virginia. And then I think clearing out by Monday night, and Tuesday should be a nice day as modeled here. All right, Mid-Atlantic, next place to kind of discuss here, and definitely a tricky forecast for you as well. This is Sunday afternoon. You'll notice all this mess back out into the Ohio Valley, still relatively dry. Now, some of the models have been hinting at maybe a couple quick rounds of precipitation. If it happens, that could be a bit of an icy concern, even for places in and around the Triad and into southern Virginia. We'll see if that happens. Like I said, some of the models have been saying yes, other models saying no. We'll know a lot more probably by this evening as some of the mesoscale models come in, and then it would happen likely tomorrow morning, and could happen throughout the day. We could get rounds of maybe unexpected wintry precipitation. Not a high likelihood event, but something worth mentioning, I think, as some of the forecast models have hinted at it. Either way, though, it's the evening of Sunday that the bulk of this comes in. This is overnight, right around the time the sun is set. Probably even a couple hours after that, and you notice this nice little area of snow beginning to break out through Virginia, some ice probably into the northern mountains of North Carolina and the Triad, and then the actual lift comes, and here we go overnight. And this is another thing I kind of want to mention that could play spoiler to some of the forecasts. We've had a forecast for pretty good icing in North Carolina, but same thing, same problem that I set up in Kentucky. The actual lifting mechanism is this warm front. So if this warm front is to the north of you, all of that lift is going to be to the north of you as well. So you might not really have much precipitation at all in extreme southern Virginia. Into the mountains of North Carolina. We'll see if that happens. It can happen very often. A lot of dry air can get ingested into this warm sector depending on where the storm came from. And since it's a Colorado low, it's going to ingest some dry air in the beginning of its life cycle. And that could help to limit precipitation within the warm sector itself. So that'll be something to watch for sure, I think, as well. Okay, here we go, though. That big shield of snow and ice begins to work north. DC, you're still in the snow zone here by the overnight of Sunday into Monday. We've got ice to the south. Again, like I said, though, pretty dry in the Carolinas and even southwestern Virginia on this model run. We'll see if that happens. Again, could play spoiler to some of those ice totals. And then here we go, Monday morning. This is when the forecast gets difficult for DC. I think you're puking snow, as I like to say, early in the morning hours. But as we go through, about the time the sun rises, here comes that warm sector, and here comes that warm nose with it. And it's trying to change your snow over to sleet from DC into really all of northern Virginia, portions of the southern Delmarva. Baltimore, it looks to be all snow. Philadelphia, I can guarantee you it will be all snow. I think really the Mason-Dixon line north, this is where I would say you're not going to have to worry about mixing. Kind of DC to Baltimore, this is where I think the hot spot is going to be, where you have the best mix of heavy precipitation, but no ice. So that's where I think the heaviest snowfall totals will be. And then right along DC, it definitely will see snow, but I think it's going to be a lot like some of the other cities. You start as snow, you change to ice, and then as the storm continues, it could stay ice for a while Monday afternoon, and then you see the bulk of precipitation returning to Virginia, as now you kind of got, instead of the warm front having to play catch up, the actual cold front comes through, and then that could once again return the icing here to the central part of the state and get some precip back down into North Carolina and South Carolina, and also produce that bulk of heavy snow, heavy sleet, heavy freezing rain, whatever it may be, Monday early afternoon, late morning, and then throughout the day, the storm pulls away, and I think we'll get a little bit of a lull here. This is Monday afternoon. Still heavy snow in Philadelphia, southern New Jersey, northern Delaware. Like I said, folks, I really think right into here is going to get the heaviest snowfall totals. Maybe cut out DC there because I don't want to get your hopes too high. But right there, northern Delaware through much of the northern half of Maryland, right along the Mason-Dixon line, even up potentially into the southern suburbs of Philadelphia. I think we're going to see half a foot of snow in some places there with this setup. Then, like I said, a little bit of a dry slot, but then the storm pulls away, and on the backside, just like everyone else, you get that back end snow, and that could help add another quick 1 to 3 inches on top of whatever ice or snow you got beforehand overnight Monday into Tuesday. And look at this. This is heavy again in the places that were already spoiled with big snow. There through Delaware, the Delmarva, and into southern Jersey. And then we pull out of kind of the crazy weather, and Tuesday looks like a nice day. All right, what about totals here? What are we saying? Well, this is from the National Weather Service themselves. I can show you Kansas and Missouri because it's within a 48-hour time frame. And they're going for that kind of 8 to 12 inch range here. They are also going 8 inches in Kansas City. We'll see. I would say probably closer to about 5 inches, but obviously they're the experts. They've worked there for a while. I'm just very skeptical that we're not going to run into some sort of mixing issues with sleet. But I do think on the backside, you could get 3 to 5 inches alone, maybe on the backside of the storm here. And then that would definitely help get you closer to that 8-inch total. So definitely possible. But I think definitely they're onto something here with these big totals into central Kansas, northern Missouri. I wouldn't be surprised to see even a little bit more than this, maybe a foot to 13, 14 inches in a couple of places. But you get the idea, big snowfall totals into central Kansas, and northern Missouri, where this could easily be a half a foot to a foot plus type of event. And then it gets a little more sketchy in the forecast in this area from St. Louis over to Kansas City, where some of that mixing could become a problem. So that is the snow forecast there. This is now the blend of models because it's not quite within a 48-hour range for the entire longevity of the storm out here. So, we'll switch to the blend of models, but this is probably going to be similar to what the NWS forecast looks like. This is a tool they love to use, and yeah, you get the idea. A big area of heavy snow, even some pockets in here showing up on the models of more than a foot of snow, and I think that's very possible north of St. Louis. St. Louis, the model here, kind of same thing with Kansas City, going with about half a foot. I'd say closer to probably 4 inches in St. Louis rather. with a little bit of snow on the front end, and then a lot of ice, at least ice snow mix maybe, and then a thump of snow on the backside. So maybe 4 to 6 inches, but I think 6 inches is on the higher end of your possibilities. Springfield, Indianapolis, Columbus, Cincinnati. These are the places I think that'll cash in pretty good in the Ohio Valley with snow. We're talking right around that 6-inch range up to a foot in those places that get the heavier end totals. And on the south side here, all of this that you're seeing is going to really come from the backside of the storm. I think you'll get a little bit of thump of snow at the beginning, but a good 1 to 3 inches in here on the backside as the storm is pulling away, but mainly ice or rain, depending if you're really far south here at the beginning of the storm's life cycle. And then the snow on the backside. So a lot of snow, though, nonetheless, through here. Now, ice is also going to be a big concern here. I'll show you this. This is the Fran. This is generally the best kind of method to use to look at ice. And the areas that are going to be kind of the worst off are going to be right here into the Ozarks, kind of the northern side of the Ozarks. A meteorologist, Matthew Capucci, who some of you might follow, actually pointed this out. I didn't even think about it. But funnily enough, we've got cold air damming down here at the Ozarks. That's a term you hear a lot back into the mountains out this way, but you can get it with these plateaus as well. And what's happening is that cold air is getting stuck here at the surface, and you're going to get those heavy precipitation rates I talked about over it. And this model's saying 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 inch of ice. I'll tell you, I think somebody's going to get 1/2 inch to an inch of ice in these darker shaded areas, kind of around Farmington, Missouri, and into extreme southern Illinois. I think right here in southern Kentucky, this is about right. I'd say 1/10 of an inch to a 1/4 of an inch. I do think some of that dry air is going to work in and limit some of the higher end totals, but definitely from kind of, we'll say Lexington over to Louisville, we'll see some higher end totals, probably about 1/4 of an inch upwards to 1/2 an inch. And then you see that ice in the mid-Atlantic as well through southern West Virginia, southwestern Virginia, probably right around 1/4 of an inch of ice going to cause problems. Snowfall in the mid-Atlantic, blend of models, I think this is about right. You kind of see that sharp cutoff right around DC. This model has a lot in DC. I would cut this down to about 5 inches, I think is going to be a safe bet in DC between the front end stuff and the back end stuff. You could get a little bit more, especially if that back end snow overproduces. But from southern New Jersey, Philadelphia, into Maryland, this is going to be a good 6 to 12 inch event. I think even plus side here in northern Delaware, kind of New Jersey, at least the southern part of the state, into Philadelphia, that back end snow combined with all the front end stuff, I wouldn't be surprised to see somebody get more than a foot in that area. And then lower end snowfall totals as you go south in Virginia, just due to a lot of that ice mixing in. I will caution, though, if the backside snow can move a little bit further south, some of the models hinted at that, you could get a bigger area of snow down here, but I would be cautious of that kind of forecast. All right, ice in here as well. We kind of talked about this already, so I'll move on. But definitely snow or ice in southwest Virginia, some ice in the northern mountains of North Carolina. Not seeing a lot here in the Triad. Could get a glaze in there. We'll see, again, kind of how the models evolve throughout the day today. But I did want to mention that. All right, let's talk about what's next. And the next problem is another storm on the way here by this time next week, probably even a little sooner than that, within the next 5 to 7 days. And here's one of the reasons. These are temperatures tomorrow afternoon. We've got below average temperatures through much of the east, and that's just the precursor. Once our storm actually moves in, you'll see here's the storm, here's that warm sector that could produce severe weather in Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, maybe even the Memphis area Sunday or tomorrow afternoon. That swings on out of here and could kind of hang even into the southeast. We'll get a quick warm up, but then behind it, the hammer drops and the cold air works in. And these are high temperatures Tuesday afternoon. We're 20, 25 degrees below average through much of the Ohio Valley on top of that snow and ice pack. We're about 10, 15 degrees below average through the deep south as that Arctic air rushes in. And then it just hangs around, folks. Look at this cold air hanging on through at least the middle of next week. And then it kind of just, stays there. So it's going to remain a favorable pattern for winter weather in the eastern half of the country, even the southern tier of the country through at least the next probably 7 to 10 days, I'd say. And then we just need some energy. So here's the latest model runs. We've been talking about it for days. I've been keeping you updated. It all comes down to this piece of energy back down into California. Does this get scooped up by our northern trough and develop into a storm? Well, the models overnight said yes. They've come back to the idea, and I think they're onto something because the ensembles are now beginning to increase snowfall chances, and I'm feeling pretty confident now we're going to get some sort of winter storm next week. Here's the problem for my friends down south. Not everybody down south. This is great news for Texas, kind of into this area I have highlighted. This is good news, but folks in Columbia, Atlanta, down into Birmingham, and extreme southern Mississippi and southern Louisiana, the problem with this piece of energy getting picked up is it's going to pull some warm air north with it. So we'll still run into all this cold air we have, but kind of watch what happens on the GFS. That northern piece of energy comes down and picks it up, and right here is your problem. We're getting some ridging out ahead of this guy, and that's bringing that warm Gulf air northward through some of these southern areas. So it's going to be a battle. How far north does this get picked up, or is there still a chance it doesn't get picked up and we just have this big northern piece of energy that could hopefully dig enough to produce southern snow and Ohio Valley snow? Both are still options, but I think the models are really right about it picking up this piece of energy. It could change, but that's just my personal opinion. And then, like I said, this is the problem with that, is some of that warm air gets pulled north, and you can see that beautifully on the latest GFS model straight from this morning. So here we go. Here's the big storm currently ongoing, or at least will be ongoing by this evening, we'll say. And then here comes our next storm system, and we'll start it out right here. This is Thursday evening of next week. We've got snow breaking out over Texas, rain from Houston, then changing to snow up near the Red River Valley into Abilene, Dallas, Fort Worth, becomes a nice snowstorm into Arkansas, northern Louisiana, and you're looking at this, and I just know you folks in Birmingham, Jackson, Atlanta, the Carolinas are saying, okay, this is a beautiful look. This is what we want for snow. And then watch what happens. The storm keeps coming. We do have snow in northern Alabama, northern Mississippi, beautiful snowstorm in Tennessee, even snow just kind of north of Atlanta with a bit of an ice storm. We've got snow I-85 north in the Carolinas, but my folks in South Carolina, from Columbia down to the coast, it's just a big old rainstorm on this run of the GFS. Let me back this up. This is Friday morning. This is Friday afternoon and evening. And then this is overnight Friday. This is Saturday morning, a good snowstorm once again in Virginia and into portions of the mid-Atlantic, and then tries to ride up the coast a little bit. So this gets interesting for everybody. This is not just interesting for the South. This gets interesting from Texas all the way up through the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast with this model run, but not quite as beautiful of a deep, deep South snowstorm as we saw a couple of runs ago. Still southern snow. I mean, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, even Louisiana had some snow on the model. So that's still southern snow for sure, but for folks in South Georgia, South Carolina, a little less favorable on that one. The European model, same idea. It's got the storm now getting picked up by that upper level trough, and that unfortunately is going to bring some warmer air with it. So I'll save you all the gory details of the in-depth stuff, and I'll just show you the model. Here it is. We've got snow breaking out over New Mexico, northern Texas by Thursday afternoon of next week. We've got rain along the coast. And folks, this is now similar. This is very similar, the two models. We've got snow in Arkansas, Tennessee, northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, North Georgia, and then all rain for South Carolina, rain I-85 southbound even. And then it kind of dies and fizzles off a little bit as it runs into some less favorable upper level conditions for a snowstorm up the coast. But the models are getting close, folks. Then right around the 13th, you see another little signal there. But that's kind of what they're showing. What about the ensemble zone? This is what really piques my interest. This is the chance of at least an inch of snow on the European ensembles. Huge uptick overnight in this one, folks. Now seeing pretty high chances through Texas. And look at this run even through the Tennessee Valley. We've got big chances for snow, at least comparative to this time yesterday, through Arkansas, Tennessee, northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, extreme North Georgia, and even sneaking into the upstate of South Carolina, Charlotte, Raleigh, Greensboro. The mountains, a big signal for snow by next weekend. This is next Saturday morning. And then into the mid-Atlantic and up the northeast coastline. And then you see even another little signal after that here, right around the 13th. So the models had a big uptick overnight, at least the ensembles did. That was the European, the GFS, same story here. Not quite as similar of a signal. It's still a little far south on these ensemble members. But you see that increase in the signal for the mountains, and then into the mid-Atlantic, seeing a higher in snowfall chance. So we're turning in the right direction. I feel pretty confident now in saying we're going to get a storm next week. I would argue a southern winter storm. How far south and to what extent is still the question, but we're less than a week away, folks. We're only about 5 days or so from the start of this thing, and probably about 7 or 8 days from it exiting the coastline. So that's what I got for you on this Saturday morning. I'll be back tonight with another update for you, but until then, have a great rest of your day. Stay safe. I'll see you all next time.